In this video I want to talk about the relationship between the senses and lust. Okay, so if we, for example, were able to take away our ability to see, then I think lust would suffer a mortal blow. Lust depends so much on our ability to see. In other words, lust is really dependent upon the visual sense. And I want to say in this video that it is quite important, if we're studying lust, if we're wanting to free ourselves from lust, that we really go deep into the senses, that we understand our five senses very well. Because a deep understanding of the senses will take us really to a deeper understanding of lust, and the more we understand something, the freer we are from it. The less fascinated we are with it, and the less hypnotized we are by it too. And in other words, the more conscious we become. The more we understand something, the more we are able to live it out in actual real life. So if somebody says to you that they understand lust, and in truth they do understand lust, it'll be very difficult to find them acting or being lustful. Okay, so now let's have a look at the visual sense. So lust, as a psychological factor in us, uses the visual sense all the time. And so the visual sense in us is pleased or satisfied when it perceives like symmetry, when it perceives something that shines, when it perceives proportions. So basically we have to apply that to what we see. So when we see something in the body of someone belonging to the opposite sex, we see those things such as proportion, symmetry, balance, shiny, things that shine, then of course our visual sense will be pleased. And then desire, that's where desire in us starts, because as soon as we have the memory of our visual sense being pleased, then there'll be a desire in us, the desire to get pleasure for our senses once again. So for example, just knowing that how the visual sense is pleased, gives us a key straight away, gives us the understanding why so many men like certain parts of the body of a woman, etc. Okay, now the other very key point here is that if we're wanting to overcome lust, we have to learn first of all to educate our visual sense. We have to tame it, we have to be in control of where we're putting our eyes. And if we do put our eyes somewhere, well, to understand that our visual senses are just drawn to that, because the visual sense finds what it's looking at pleasing. Okay, that's right, the senses are pleased, fair enough. But then that's not it. There's something else that happens in our mind. When our visual sense is pleased, a certain interpretation is created in our mind. Our mind takes that information from our senses and then it elaborates something. And that elaboration is something very subjective. It happens in everybody's brain, everybody that has lust. And it creates something that's like an exaggeration, and it's something that makes us to lust after that woman, or it could be a car, it could be a house, it could be a certain object. But essentially, a person of the opposite sex. So the real key point here is the interpretation that our mind, or the ego of lust working in our mind, gives to the senses. So, for example, somebody's mind or ego of lust may interpret or transform our visual sense being pleased into a certain emotion, and that emotion is what really gets us hooked, what really makes a person crazy, we could say. What really makes them unable to control their lust. And that sensation could be a feeling of comfort, a feeling of freedom, a feeling of trust, a feeling of being at home. It could be a feeling of pleasure, of excitement, of exhilaration, of fun, etc., 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 etc. And really that feeling is what hooks us in, what gets us stuck. So we have to find within our own mind why we translate our visual sense being pleased or satisfied into that emotion. It may come from our childhood. Most likely it will come from our past, a very remote, ancient past maybe, who knows. But anyhow, we have to find it, and we can find it if we keep our attention focused on it and try very, very, very hard to delve deep into that emotion and to perceive what that feeling, what that emotion really is about. Is it about comfort? Is it about security? Is it about being satisfied, being complete, being at home, being able to feel at peace, to rest, etc., etc. So there are two key points here: the senses being pleased, and then the interpretation that we give to the senses. Okay, so last point I want to conclude this video with is that also the touching sense is very important to lust, and in some way the hearing sense is quite important too. Basically, the hearing sense doesn't get so much satisfied like the visual sense does, but the information that is caught by the hearing sense, it gives some very important information to the ego of lust. Basically, that pleasure is being received, etc., etc. But the tactile sense, the touching sense, well, it likes to be pleased by seeing something smooth. Doesn't like something that is jagged or edged, that has sharp edges that's going to hurt one's skin. So the sense of touch, is pleased or satisfied with things that are smooth, that don't hurt, that don't produce pain to the skin, our own skin, that is. Okay, so with that bit of information, we can understand a lot about our lust, why it's drawn to certain things. Okay, so I hope this video has been useful. But the best thing you can do with this video is to take the information and then begin to study your own lust, your own mind, the way your senses are satisfied, and to use that information to really understand deeply the mechanisms of what's going on within your mind and with your senses in relation to lust. So the more you study it, the more understanding you'll generate, and the freer and freer and more conscious you will become. Your life will change. Okay, hope this video has been useful once again. Thank you.